Welcome to Creekside Online. Our mission is to reach the world with Jesus one person at a time, with Christ, community, and compassion. We are so glad that you are joining us today. If it is your very first time, please take a moment to click the link below and fill out an online Connect card. We would love for you to stay connected throughout the week and everywhere you go. And the best way to do that is through our church app. There you can watch additional messages and find resources to help you grow in your relationship with Christ. It's free and you can download it wherever you download your apps. For us, church is so much more than just a weekend experience. And we want you to know that there's a place here for you at Creekside. No matter where you're watching today, let's get ready for what God has in store for us.
Welcome. Good to see everybody here today in this September shiny morning. It's awesome to live in Florida, isn't it? It still is awesome. It's incredible. Even though it's been hot lately, it's been warm, and yet it gets a little cooler now in the evening. We're thanking the Lord for that. So, man, it's good to have you here. If you're guests with us, hope you'll check out that Next Step area. Very important. Discover Creekside started today this hour, so probably several of our people over there. Hope you check that out. If you haven't been to Discover Creekside yet, want to welcome you as well online. We are beginning a new series today, a very exciting series I've been looking forward to called Epic Times, man, because we are living, I believe, in epic end times, where it's just closer than ever before. We know that for a fact. I'll tell you what, there are strange things that are happening and have been happening in the last several years, and we're going to talk all about that. So this is going to be the first about 5 sermons that we're talking about. Literally, I mean, there's so much material out there. We could spend 53 weeks on this stuff and still have just touched the surface on a lot of it. So I'm going to just try to kind of do a quick overviews on some things to give you some guidance. A lot of you guys can go home, you can study this stuff for yourself. But I want you to know, especially if you're not yet a Christian here today or online, if you're not yet a Christian, this stuff is not meant to just put you into such great fear that you choose to follow Jesus in that. Now, fear is a good motivator at some points. It's the beginning of wisdom, the Bible says, but the truth is we want you motivated out of a love for what God did for you to rescue you. This is meant for informational purposes, especially if you're not yet a Christian. And for you who are Christians, this just reinforces the confidence that we have when we know that our lives are in Jesus Christ. My wife and I have devotions every night. We go to bed, and in our time right before we are about ready to fall asleep, we both thank the Lord for the resurrection from the dead. Because we know if he comes sometime in the middle of the night, or there's some nuclear war that starts, or if it's our night of our last breath on this earth, that thank the Lord for the resurrection from the dead. We have every confidence that we're going to be with Jesus face to face, and that's a glorious thing for us. It's a confident thing. And it is our prayer that you would carry that confidence with you everywhere that you go, that you will try to make Jesus' love abound more and more in your heart, so that you'll be ready for heaven yourself, but also so that you'll be ready to share the news with urgency. So there's as many people as possible that link arms with you and gets on board to this ship that's going to heaven that we hope everybody's part of today. So a quick overview. There's a lot of different views on Revelation. And there's 4 major views, and out of each of those 4, there's spin-offs and different views. So it's no wonder that people get confused these days about what the end times are going to look like. And real quickly just today, thumbnail sketch, and then I'm going to get to something that we can all agree upon, some passages that we can all agree upon in Matthew chapter 24, Luke 17, and Luke 21. So if you want to put your thumbs in the Bible in those places, but we're primarily going to stay in Luke 17 today with Matthew 24 as the backdrop. But before we get started, I want you to know these four major views. Preterist, there's the preterist view, which has been a long time view, all the way since about the first century. So 1700 years ago is when we know for sure that it started. So 1.7K up there, that this is the view that basically everything was fulfilled in the book of Revelation was fulfilled up to the point that Jerusalem fell. And man, it's a fascinating viewpoint. If you've studied any of the preterist viewpoints, man, they can nail things down to so much that's going on in the Roman government at that time, and they get so specific historically. I've been studying this stuff for over 40 years. It's amazing how close they get to things that have happened and how you look at the scripture and Revelation and other places and you go, wow, this is exactly the viewpoint. And as soon as you put that viewpoint down and you pick up the next one, historist, by the time you're through studying that for years, you're like, no, this is the one. The historist viewpoint is from the beginning. About 1700 years ago, this viewpoint became real popular and it exists still today. In fact, the reformers, Calvin and Luther and Zwingli and all these, Spurgeon, all these people had this viewpoint, the historist viewpoint, that was from the beginning of time, and they tie in all these wars, the Muslim wars and different things that have happened up until this point today, and they specifically will tell you who the man of lawlessness is, what the Antichrist is, and they're pretty sure, especially with the Inquisitions that happened. That's why this viewpoint became very popular during the time when there's a lot of corruption in the official church at that time. And even they admit it. And the Inquisitions, a lot of people who in faith, like Luther wasn't martyred, but they tried to martyr him, who just held out the truth of Scripture. Man, the Inquisitions were burned to death. They were just killed and murdered, unfortunately, because of just trying to share the truth. And so this historist viewpoint especially became popular during that time. But on the heels of that came another viewpoint as it seemed to lose its steam about in 1830. But really this is about 500 years ago because a Jesuit priest was basically commissioned to say, hey, take the onus off of us. These reformers are pointing to us, the popes and the different places, like we are the Antichrist, and we need you to show this other philosophy. And there was another philosophy during that time that came about 500 years old by this Jesuit priest that pointed to that there was a future, that really Revelation 4 through 21 had not happened yet. And that the truth is that the church, most people believe in this viewpoint, although there are spin-offs of this. It's become very popular in the last 200 years, starting with at 1830, became very popular, as well as Hal Lindsey's book and Tim LaHaye's book have become very, very popular. But really that part of it is only 200 years that it's been that famous. But really, it was started about 500 years ago. Get the onus, get the pointing of the fingers off get away from this historist view, pointing the fingers at the Pope as the Antichrist. And so this view came about, this futurist view that says that from chapter 4 on, saints, Christians, we're going to be in heaven. We're not going to have to experience what you read in verses 4 to the end. And to be honest, all of us are like, we don't want that. Yeah, that's exactly. We don't want experience when you read Revelation 4 to the end. It can bring a little bit of terror into your mind when you think about these things happening to you. But then there's one more view. It's called the spiritualist or the idealistic view, which a lot of people throw out quickly. They dismiss it because they're like, oh, it's all spiritualizing. It's allegorical, it seems. It's an oversimplification. But when you get into it, you realize it's not an oversimplification. It's very sophisticated. And they'll take the first seal, because we got the 7 seals, you got the 7 bowls, you've got the 7 trumpets, and they say, look, there's a parallel. this first seal, this first trumpet, this first bowl, it all kind of sounds similar. It's talking about the sea, or it's talking about the land during that time and what's going to happen. Look, the second seal, the second trumpet, the second bowl, they match up too. And it's called recapitulation happening. So this is a philosophy that basically the church age has been all the way from the beginning of the church until now, and gets real specific. And if you're one of those people that want to dismiss it, let me encourage you to pick up this book by G.K. Beale. Can you see how tiny the writing is? Some of you guys? A little tiny, isn't it? And by the way, you better know Greek too when you start to read it, because he goes very deep into the Greek. And just for your afternoon reading, go ahead. I'll loan it to you. You can take it. But there's people a whole lot smarter than me and a whole lot smarter than us collectively. That's why I've been studying this stuff for 40 years, and it's truly, truly amazing. So we want you to be a little bit careful when you take this stance. You go, no, I'm right, because here at Creekside, we basically say this is a non-essential. It's not essential to salvation. It's not specific to salvation. Therefore, it's negotiable among all of us. We're going to go to heaven. We're going to see people that maybe disagreed with us about how things were going to pan out. And it's going to be okay, right? Because we're going to all be in heaven. And you say, okay, Chuck, well, which view do you take, right? Well, I say I'm a partial preterist, a partial historist, a partial futurist, and a partial spiritualist. You say, you're a cop-out, dude. You just a scaredy pants. I am really, don't call me a partial person, okay? I'm not a partial person. The truth is there's so much truth in each one of the views when you begin looking at it, and there are flaws in each of the views, by the way, in interpretation. Some of those that go, oh, we're the literal view. I point things out to people. You're not as literal as you think you are. It's just you've been focused in on that one view. The point of the matter is we all need to agree Jesus is coming back. Can we all agree on that? He is coming back, and his time is getting closer than ever before. And so I just want to encourage us all to just be together on this thing, especially to have the right spirit about it, because I think back to the Old Testament and why the people who were the most religious during that time missed Jesus, his first coming. They just missed it because they were reading all this stuff about him being a mighty king, and they missed the suffering servant part of the prophecies being fulfilled. And so I want to encourage us to keep an open mind and study with humility, but study it intently. Now, there's some things we can understand for sure from, again, Matthew 24. Matthew 24, Jesus is answering the disciples in the very first part of the chapter, and he's answering two questions. He had predicted that the temple is going to be destroyed, and then also he talked about the end time. So they ask him two questions. Tell us when this is going to happen, the destruction of the temple, and tell us when you're coming back again, when the end of the world's happening. And so woven throughout chapter 24 is Jesus' answer to that. And so there's confusion among scholars. Okay, was he dealing with the destruction of the temple when he said that, or was he dealing with the end times and what's coming? So I've jumped to Luke 27 or 17. We're going to look at that. Luke 21 is also a passage that is very much like the book of Matthew as well, in their oral tradition of sharing these stories of how Jesus, but it's in the context, again, usually Jesus in the context here, he's looking over Jerusalem and he shares about the end time. This question, he's answering this one specific, not necessarily the destruction of the temple. Verse 24. For as the lightning flashes and lights up the sky from one end to the other, so it'll be in the day when the Son of Man comes. But first, the Son of Man must suffer terribly and be rejected by this generation. When the Son of Man returns, it'll be like it was in Noah's day. In those days, the people enjoyed banquets and parties and weddings right up to the time Noah entered his boat and the flood came and destroyed them all. And the world will be as it was in the days of Lot. People went about their daily business, eating and drinking, buying and selling, farming and building, until the morning Lot left Sodom. Then fire and burning sulfur rained down from heaven and destroyed them all. Yes, it will be business as usual right up to the day when the Son of Man is revealed. Staff said today, wouldn't it be great if while you're preaching, Jesus came? Business as usual. I would welcome that big time. Would you? Would you? Listen, I hope we can all agree what he's saying here is true. Just as it was in the days of Noah, as in Sodom and Gomorrah, man, we are seeing these kind of days again, worldwide. So let's go back to the flood. Let's talk a little bit about that. Genesis chapter 6. The Lord observed in chapter 5 that the extent of the human wickedness on the earth, and he saw that everything that they thought or imagined was consistently and totally evil. And so the Lord was sorry that he'd ever made them and put them on the earth. It broke his heart. And the Lord said, I will wipe this human race I have created from the face of the earth. Yes, and I will destroy every living thing, all the people, the large animals, the small animals that scurry along the ground, and even the birds of the sky. I'm sorry I ever made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. That's my prayer for you today, that you're like Noah, finds favor in a day like today. Listen, this was a time where it says every inclination of man there was to do evil. Can I just say that I've even heard from not yet Christians, people who don't know the Bible, that something's wrong in this world, that there's an evil that's rising up that they don't understand, but they don't deny anymore that there is evil. They just don't always know the way of salvation, and we need to be ready to share it with them. As it was in Noah's day, where only a few were saved. Remember I said a couple weeks ago, Jesus said, narrow is the way. Take the narrow gate, not the broad road that everybody's taking. Noah took the narrow way. Even though he's made fun of by everybody else, he was going to obey God. Jesus said in Matthew 24, when he comes back, will he find any faith on the earth? Will he? And in verse 12 of 24, he says, the love of many for God, he's talking about the love of many for God. When he comes back, it's grown cold. It will grow cold over a period of time. Didn't we see that happen in a very general way, a very significant way, really, in 2020? It seemed like everybody was looking out for themselves. Man, the Christians during the bubonic plague, man, when that thing broke out, the Christians already knew their eternity was settled and that they were going to rise again with Jesus. They weren't afraid of death, and so they ran into Rome as everybody was fleeing the cities to take care of those that had the plague. And yet, here we are, reading these scriptures. The Lord's saying, be ready, make sure your love hasn't grown cold. Your love towards God, your love towards other people that you have as a result of the confidence that you have of the resurrection from the dead. You see, friends, our Father in heaven is a God of love, of mercy, but he's also a God of justice. We love the grace part. We love the mercy part. We love to emphasize how much he loves us, and he does. But God is also a just God. And so someday he will definitely need to decipher between good and evil and those who get to heaven and those who don't. And sometimes his judgment begins on the earth. In fact, Hebrews says it begins with the church of God at times. Why? Because God has wanted to make us an example. And sometimes we suffer more than the others so that we can be humble enough and desperate enough for God to be an example towards them. But the truth is, friends, God hates evil at all times. Not people, but he hates evil. A.W. Tozer wrote, God hates iniquity as a mother hates the disease that would take the life of her child. Right? And so God created an antidote, his son. Himself, he would come and suffer the torture and the pain that we deserved. It was placed upon him and is imputed to him to the cross. Your sins were put on him, and that was the antidote. But it is our choice to whether to be all in with that and follow him with all of our heart and all of our love, or to just give him mediocre love. Will you be that person like Mary? I know I will be when I see him at his feet, weeping my tears and using my hair to brush his feet. For those of you that don't have hair, I don't know what you'll do, but I know that I'll be using my hair to brush his feet, weeping at his feet, right? I mean, for how he saved us, how he's rescued us. Truth is, God's going to come again. There's going to be a remnant is going to be saved. The first time is with the flood. The next time is going to be with fire. Hebrews 11:7 encourages us. It says, it was by faith that Noah built a large boat. You see, faith does something. If you really believe in Jesus, you do something. Noah truly believed in God and he obeyed God. He did something to show his faith, even though he was made fun of, other scriptures said. He preached Jesus. He preached what was coming, the judgment that was coming. He was made fun of. And he built that to save his family. By the way, you know who was in his family? Who are his kids? Noah's kids? Shem, Ham, and Japheth. All right. That was Adam, but close. Okay. You'll get it next time. Who was his wife? Who was Noah's wife? Joan of Arc. Come on, you guys. I'm kidding. Listen, she was a great teacher, but that's not his wife. We don't know what her name was, but anyhow, I just had to make sure you were still with me, you guys. Large boat to save his family. Look at this. From the flood, he obeyed God, who warned him about these things that had never happened before. Now, we're going to describe, what the Bible describes as a flood of fire that's coming, a flash fire like what happened in Maui. It's never happened before around the world. Doesn't mean it's not going to, because the flood really happened. Listen, I believe Noah was a real person. I know there's a lot of skeptics out there about this, and some think, well, was it a localized flood? But can I just show you some things this morning, if you're one of those skeptics, to maybe help you rethink this? God's demonstration of justice and cleansing of the earth, and yet his mercy to save just a few. Modern science has recently reenacted the event, so let's just watch this for a second.
Then, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. These two events, the fountains of the great deep breaking up and the windows of heaven opening, began the first day of a 371-day-long calamity that resurfaced the earth and killed everything that moved on land. Hot magma mixed with steam pierced the earth's crust. Giant rifts or tears ran thousands of miles across the planet. Scalding hot magma vaporized massive amounts of water that jetted into the atmosphere. The water fell back to Earth as intense global rain, along with torrential rain from heaven for 40 days. Worldwide catastrophic rifting caused massive mud-filled tsunamis to speed across deep ocean floors, then onto shallow ocean floors, killing everything in their path. The first mega-sequence wipes out mostly shallow marine habitats. The bursting fountains of the great deep spew out megatons of magma and carbon dioxide. Sure enough, the first mega-sequence rocks show a spike in volcanic activity and massive amounts of carbon dioxide. During these first 40 days, intense water currents overtopped most of the flooded continents. Water-laden sediment travels at highway speeds. Thick sediment blankets start covering low regions of the continent. Fossils show that the first 3 mega-sequences buried the shallow seas that were filled with marine life, as these deposits have almost no trees or land animals. All 3 mega-sequences covered similar environments across North and South America and Africa, the 3 continents mapped so far. One global cause, Noah's flood, best explains this one worldwide effect. Then by the 40th day of the flood, the Absorica mega-sequence began hitting. The maps show that this is when things got much worse. Something shoves the water over the tops of even the high lands from that ancient world. The newly forming ocean floor offshore is so hot that it starts very thick, pushing up the ocean waters from beneath. Sea level rises dramatically. Molten magma rises and fills the widening gaps, pushing the mid-ocean ridges wider. The hot ocean floor shoves against the continents, then slides beneath them like giant conveyor belts, deep beneath.
Friends, if you try to discredit the flood, you're trying to discredit just so much science that, by the way, supports it, but you're also trying to discredit Job and Isaiah and Ezekiel who talked about it. By the way, you'll be discrediting Jesus, who recognized the flood as worldwide, as well as Peter in the Bible. Listen, the flood just doesn't read like a lie. When you read it in Genesis, it has this ring of truth in it. The details are specific, the size of the ark, the time that they were in the ark. There's an ornate ark in Kentucky. How many of you have seen it or been to it? All right, many of you. Now, I don't know that it's as ornate and beautiful as it was made back in ancient times with Noah, but the dimensions are exact to what they read in the Bible. And we're going to take a trip up there on March 24th through the 27th. You can email me and I'll give you, we've got a guy spearheading that. Dan Eiler is going to spearhead that for us, so I'm excited. I hope that you get on board with us. So we're going to go up there and see this amazing thing and all the explanations of what made this possible. But listen, if even you see that and you're still skeptical, can I just ask you to think about a couple other things? There's this thing that they found 100 years ago in Mesopotamia. They found these Epic of Gilgamesh kind of tablets that they find from the Sumerian people, and it all reads about a worldwide flood and how just one family was saved through that. By the way, that's not the only culture that has stories written on tablets or orally communicated stories of a great flood. They estimate there's up to 100 or more societies around the world that have this story of a flood. Hawaii, Mexico, the Hindus, the Incas, all around the world, all these societies. Now, skeptics look at that and they say, well, this was just mythological stories that were told and therefore it's kind of spread around the globe. But isn't it just more natural to believe that there really was a worldwide flood? And that's why all of them have a similar story. Listen, friends, even science skeptics like Lynn Jord will tell us facts that should really make us think hard on this. He's a professor of human genetics and microbiology at the University of Utah. He said their studies show that thousands of years ago, there were vast numbers of people living on the earth, but something happened. Some dramatic event happened to cause what he referred to, as he looks genetically at humans, the human DNA, some cause a catastrophic reduction in the population. In fact, he insists, a few thousand years ago, mankind almost went extinct. Now, we know from a creation standpoint, he's got to be talking about the flood, what science has said, but yet they look at it and still try to explain it away, but science continually proves the Bible. It doesn't disprove the Bible, friends. Listen, scientists also know, have you been seeing this? Since about 3-4 years ago, they've been like, wow, the Earth's crust and what's underneath it, we didn't know. There's a whole ocean under this crust that we didn't know was there before. Just recently, just this last week, I read another article from a Greek magazine that came out about that, referencing AGU, an Advanced Earth and Space Science article that talks about this whole ecological system, this ocean underneath the surface, which validates the Bible. Again, what does the scripture say in Genesis? The earth bursts forth. The Atlantic, the Pacific ridge happened because water spewed out from beneath as well as the rain fell down from heaven. Again, science just proving the Bible over and over again. Some of you say, well, what happened to the dinosaurs and all these fossils? Let's just watch this, another apologetic film that explains that.
Trillion tons of coal reserves. Where did it all come from? While we know that coal is formed by dead plant material being sandwiched between sediment layers, we only have enough vegetation on the Earth's surface today to produce just a fraction of the existing coal reserves. This shows that the pre-flood world was mostly covered by lush vegetation. The rising floodwaters and tsunamis that were necessary to sweep over the land and bury vast amounts of vegetation that turned into coal are best explained by a catastrophe of worldwide proportions. The fact that over a dozen states in the U.S. are filled with dinosaur fossils buried under heaps of mud also attests to the flood. In fact, geologists have found a temporarily exposed dinosaur peninsula where the dinosaurs made their last stand, now buried there along with lake and sea life transported by the massive waves. The earlier flood deposits, the first 3 megasequences, do not seem to have deposited much material over this dinosaur peninsula. Only a few hundred yards of sediment remain along the margins, and in many places, no deposition is left at all. Deposits thousands of feet thick occur east and west of this temporarily exposed peninsula that extends from Minnesota to New Mexico. Now buried across it are pre-flood wetland plants and animals, including dinosaurs, turtles, frogs, fish, and many birds. Thousands of dinosaur trackways up and down this peninsula, plus similar temporarily exposed low areas on other continents, suggest that dying dinosaurs and other hardy track makers floated, waded, and walked on freshly deposited mud, trying.
And the record goes on to say they were in a hurry, and they don't find any baby dinosaurs in that. Why? Because the baby dinosaurs couldn't keep up with the big dinosaurs fleeing the tsunami that had come with the first flood. Epic times they were. Just as today, when he comes again, it'll be epic. Listen to Peter, what he says in 2 Peter 3, verse 3. Most importantly, I want to remind you that in the last days, scoffers will come, mocking the truth and following their own desires. People say, oh, it's just a localized flood. Oh, that wasn't a real flood. You kidding me? The whole earth? They're scoffers. They will say, what happened to the promise that Jesus is coming again? From before the times of our ancestors, everything has remained the same since the world was first created. Man, it's been 2,000 years now, they'll say. They deliberately forget, though, that God made the heavens long ago by the word of his command. And he brought the earth out from the water and surrounded it with water. Then he used the water to destroy the ancient world with a mighty flood. And by the same word, the present heavens and earth have been restored. Stored up for fire. They are being kept for the day of judgment when ungodly people will be destroyed. But you must not forget this one thing, dear friends. A day is like 1,000 years to the Lord, and 1,000 years like a day. The Lord, he isn't really being slow, keeping his promise, as some people think. No, he is being patient for your sake. He does not want anyone to be destroyed, but wants everyone to repent. But the day of the Lord will come as unexpectedly as a thief. Then the heavens will pass away with a terrible noise, and the very elements themselves will disappear in fire, and the earth and everything in it and on it will be found to deserve judgment. Epic. Real. It's going to happen again, but this time by fire. Here's some applications for us today. First of all, let's take God's warning seriously, right? Listen, nearly every parent knows what it's like to basically try to get their kids in line on a trip, right? You're going to Disney for 2.5 hours. The kids have been fighting. Finally, you're within 5 miles of Disney World. And you say, if you don't behave, we're turning this car around right now and going home. How does that work for you? Right? And those kids, they know you're not turning around. They know you're not serious. Well, friends, God's not like us. He's not at all like us humans. What you read in Scripture is true. It's real. It's going to happen. And some people think, well, God is too harsh, and so they dismiss God. They say, well, you say God is a good God, God's a loving God, but what about all these children who died in the flood? What about all the children who died in Sodom and Gomorrah then? If that was a real thing, God's too harsh, and it becomes an excuse for them to continue in their temporary pleasures on this earth. Friends, can I tell you from someone who lost 2 friends at the age of 10? I lost 2 friends. One night they were here, the next night they were gone. Suddenly it gives you a different perspective on life and on eternity, you know? And time goes by so fast. You know, these kids who died in these pagan, morally corrupt societies of Sodom and Gomorrah and during the times of Noah, who do you think's better off now? Those kids who basically were in an age of innocence, so they're in heaven with Jesus. They weren't raised in those pagan societies. Or those parents who they had a choice. See, friends, the Bible says in Romans 4:15, we reach an age of accountability where we need to make sure that we follow the law. But before that age, kids are innocent. I can tell you, time goes fast, It goes so fast. It is really just like somebody described it. It's like a roll of toilet paper, You get closer to the end, it just goes faster for some reason. The time just spins faster somehow. I don't know where the time goes. But our time is brief, so make sure you've made that choice to obey and follow the law that you know. Obey. Noah obeyed what he knew to do. he stayed with it for those 100 years it took to build the ark. Secondly, so take his warning seriously. Secondly, let's be fond of abiding in God's will versus being overly attached and affectionate to this world. It's so temporary. Look at 1 John 2:15. Don't love the world or the things of the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that's in the world, the desires of the flesh, the desires of the eyes, the pride of life is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away along with its desires. But whoever does the will of God abides forever. Children, it's the last hour. And as you've heard that Antichrist is coming, so many Antichrists have come. Therefore, we know it's the last hour. I'm going to talk about Antichrist here in a couple weeks, so be tuned for that. But what's he saying? Don't get overly connected. Don't get overly attached to this world. Man, Genesis 6:5, the Lord saw how great man's wickedness on the earth had become, and that every inclination of his thoughts, of his heart, was only evil all the time. Can I just say, it's got to be close. Aren't we getting close? And in that time, I had my 2.5-year-old grandson, Colt. We had just grandparent and grandson time. He was the only one here. And, he got more energy than I can muster, even though he's going through chemo. It's amazing to me. And so I had to take a break. I turned the TV on, think I'm going to find him something. And I come down through, and it says the new Looney Tunes. I'm thinking Looney Tunes. I remember Looney Tunes when I was growing up. That was a pretty funny show. I'll turn that on. And immediately came up Rooster, Foghorn, Leghorn. You remember him? It's just kind of this manly rooster kind of thing. But he wasn't in this one. They had cross-dressed him, and he began kissing other male figures in the cartoons. I'm thinking the days of Noah, the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. Friends, we've certainly arrived at that time. And Jesus, in the Bible, John warns us not to be like Lot's wife, who turned around and was still affectionate towards the rebellion, towards the pleasures, towards the riches of Sodom and Gomorrah. The Bible warns us to abide with God and not be overly affectionate with this earth. The third lesson today, and this is really my bottom line. Friends, let's agree there's a heaven and there's a hell and there's a hurry to obey. Are you in Jesus Christ? Do you know that you have the antidote, that you are abiding in him, you have a relationship with him? We think of this word apocalypse. That's just the Greek word of revelation, apocalypsis. And it's not revelations. There's not many revelations, just one, which means apocalypsis just means an uncovering of the truth. It's going to unfold either, very quickly for you, or you'll be up in heaven watching it, but you're to be ready. At any moment, at any age, I believe Revelation applies to everybody for all time to give us hope, but also to give us an urgency. There's a heaven, there's a hell, and there's a hurry. Make sure you're on the boat. 1 Peter 3:18. I'm going to close with this. Christ suffered for our sins once for all time. He never sinned, but he died for sinners to bring you safely home to God. Man, are you with Christ? Then you can go to bed every night. Thank you for the resurrection. He suffered physical death, but he was raised to life in the Spirit. So he went and preached to the spirits in prison. Now what's that? Those who disobeyed God long ago when God waited patiently while Noah was building his boat. What's that about? Well, we know that the angels of God cohabitated with women, and there was this race of Nephilim. Here's what's going on. Satan knows that the promise that a seed would come and save all of mankind was going to be born, and so he's trying to somehow infect the human race so the perfect seed, a good seed, can't be born. There will only be rebellious seeds on the earth. You see, so God is still protecting and making a way. And Jesus goes, and that 3 days he goes and preaches to the spirits that are held captive. He says, I'm the seed and I'm the victor. It's come. It's come. And then Peter goes on to say in verse 20, only 8 people were saved from the drowning in that terrible flood. And that water is a picture of baptism, which now saves you not by removing dirt from your body, but as a response to God from a clean conscience. See, all those people that didn't obey Noah and his warning, they still had a dirty conscience. They didn't obey what God was clearly saying, the ring of truth. And God says, you want a clean conscience? You come to God humbly, surrendered in baptism, which is symbolic of dying with my Son to the flesh and living for the Spirit forevermore. He says it's effective because of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Nothing magical in the body, in the water, but because of the body, the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, he says it's effective what you do by giving your life and being all in the watery grave of baptism. And now Christ has gone to heaven. He's seated in the place of honor next to God, and all the angels and authorities and powers accept his authority. So will you accept his authority today? This is really his appeal to you today. Will you accept this message as true? An epic time is coming again, just as epic as the flood. I've heard of people missing cruises. I don't know how that happens, but literally, I've had some friends who missed their cruise. You know, they docked at an island. Bye. We're going to have to figure out another way home. There won't be another way when the ship leaves this time again. It'll be quick. Jesus said, the blink of an eye. He said, the flash of a lightning bolt. The flood, like a tsunami that flees, except this time it'd be a flood of fire like in Maui where thousands were perished because they didn't have time to get away from it. God's provided a gangplank to a boat of rescue for you. What is holding you back? There's a heaven, there's a hell, and there's a hurry. Let's pray. God, we come before you thanking you for your rescue to us. You are a God of mercy and love, and you provide antidotes, and you provide a clear message that gives us such confidence. And you provided us your love and your only Son given for us so that we don't have to face condemnation. So, Father, we come before you thanking you and praising you for that rescue. And Lord, also we come concerned about those who are not ready for it. We come to you concerned about our neighbors and our friends that don't sense the urgency. Maybe even some today might walk away and still have missed the warning. So, Father, I pray that you'd speak to those hearts tenderly right now. I pray that they would open their ears and not harden their hearts as people have in rebellions from long ago. Help them to receive the warmth of your love and come running to your cross, laying all their burdens, their sins down at your feet and giving their life completely to you. We pray in your precious name, in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. We hope the message you just listened to had an impact on you. Make sure to stay connected with us through the week online at creeksidechristian.com and on Facebook and Instagram at Creekside Christian Church. We believe God has something unique to say to you, and our hope is that you feel His love stronger today than ever before. We love you, and we'll see you next time.